Hey guys, welcome to the Deadly Premonition epilogue. I'm sorry for everyone in stream. They literally have to hear me repeat myself. Yeah, exactly. I just finished explaining my York and Zach theory, and uh, well, that's why I said wait until after I finish, because you pretty much thought you came to the exact same conclusion that I did. Mod came. Mod was on point with this game the whole time. It was blowing my mind. It was blowing my friend Trillium's mind. We've both played the game. We were like, "What the fuck?" Her mind is going to be blown even further in just a sec after I rehash the York and Zach theory. So, sorry to rehash this for those in stream, but I did a derp. So, um, as I was saying, when this came out in 2010, a lot of people thought York and Zach had DID, had dissociative identity disorder, or that Zach did. And especially with the line that Zach says of York, my other personality, people took that very literally. And I think it's kind of funny, again, in a game about other worlds like the Silent Hill other world and, red trees and red seas that are like aphrodisiacs and people morphing into these hellish creatures and making trees grow from people by sexually assaulting them and everything, that like they can like wrap their minds around all of that kind of logic. And some people going into Deadly Prem are Twin Peaks fans and know how crazy that show gets, but they can't quite accept the fact that there could be another presence inhabiting Zach's body, especially in this director's cut where York, I'm gonna slim this down a bit further. York says the line, as Maud pointed out. York says in the added-on epilogue that he can't leave you. I can't just leave you humans alone. That's what makes you so fascinating. You humans, specifically you humans. And it's based off of it's kind of based off of, my theory is based off of Twin Peaks. So in Twin Peaks, there's a character, Hawk, who's a Native American. He says his people have a legend in that area. Also takes place in Washington State. Of Twin Peaks is a real place, by the way. I want to go. Of a white lodge where your like soul can find like nirvana, essentially, like the idea of nirvana, or the black lodge where essentially evil incarnate lies. And if you can survive it, then you have faced the worst that the world has to offer, and you are strong. But it's not a good idea to go visit the Black Lodge. And then there's the regular world. So if we want to transpose those ideas onto Deadly Prem, we have the normal world, and we have the White Room, or the White World, where the forest is with the goddesses, and the Red Room, and the Red World, where the red saplings come from, where Kaysen comes from, where the red tree comes from. Kaysen is an agent of the Red World. Attempting to shoot him with that choice at the end does nothing. He even says, I am an agent of the Red World. I am an agent of the Red Tree. So there are 3 separate worlds, and Zach embodies those 3 in his own appearance. His original eye color is blue, which he still has. His other eye turned red when it got cut by Kaysen, and his hair turned white from the shock. So York is a white worlder who took over Zach's body to pull him back due to the trauma that he suffered. And it was a way to keep him safe from Kaysen. Kaysen was not actively hunting him, but he was furious when he found out that Zach escaped. He clearly remembered Zach and was furious that Zach escaped the Red Room, because no one's ever been able to do it before. So York and Zach are 2 separate entities. York is a white worlder. And here is where I kind of have a little crackpot theory. And this I did not cover with stream. But this is the reason... Oh, and I talked about Harry as well. We know something happened with Harry. I think that the guy that has Harry's face and voice that you see in the White World is Harry's White World counterpart. Trisha pointed out that the twins have White World counterparts in form of the angels, Isaac and Isaiah. So there's a lot of evidence leading to this. I'm not saying my theory is like the absolute truth. SWERY likes his fans to speculate, but with this version and with the director's cut, and also with certain parts in Deadly Premonition 2, there is, I will very, 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 very lightly spoil Deadly Prem 2 and say that there are some characters that are aware of the nature of York and Zack. And one character even sees both of them separately, standing together. So, and is confused as to why York is there. Because we see York, and because we know what's actually, again, I said this in the last video, we know what's actually happening. We see York, we see the dark-haired man, but everybody else sees Zack because it is his body. They see the man with the white hair, they see the man with the giant scar. That's why the townspeople kept talking about his scar. They weren't talking about the cuts on York's cheek that he got from, the Catwoman wannabe. But I have a crazy theory that kind of has to deal with Harry and his time in the Red World and the White World and the time that he spent there. Kaysen referenced very briefly before the final boss that that senile old man, meaning Harry, had spent some time in the Red World, and we've obviously seen him in the White World. Something changed in Harry, obviously. And I think a lot of White Worlders have interesting tics. I think they have interesting tics, like, they're really passionate about movies, that kind of thing. Like, they just have, like, an almost near eidetic or photographic memory of movies. Or, and this is why I wore the right suit to Harry's, maybe they like to rhyme. I think, personally, my chat doesn't even know this yet, I personally think that Michael is a White Worlder. I think he came from the White World to help Harry. And Harry adopted him as his son. Because Harry suffered such massive amounts of trauma with what happened to him. And he felt guilty over not taking care of George and losing his wife. He needed someone to help him, and he obviously knows his way to wander the worlds. And it seems that White Worlders are kind of quirky. And that would explain Michael's constant rhyming. There's no evidence to back me up other than that. It's just my own crackpot thing. So, I mean, that is a very much your mileage may vary. But yeah, that's York and Zack. York is another being who inhabited Zack's body and kept talking to him and kept reassuring him, even when he was scared, that things were okay, to pull Zack out of that room. And he was finally able to do so when Zack and York were 33 years old. This happened to them this happened to Zack when he was like 5-ish. So it took York about like 25 to 30 years to pull Zack out. It's just incredible, honestly. So that's my theory, but there's a couple of other things, and now I'm gonna blow my mod's mind. She has no idea how down to the wire she predicted something. This is something that was word of God. That's the trope name for it. That's when the creator says something outside of the source material. Same with your mileage may vary. I use a lot of tropes. I use a lot of trope names. This is a word of God thing. It is not mentioned in game. It is briefly hinted at the very end. We saw that Kaysen doll. He was reduced to that doll. Zack stepped on it. It went squeak. We all had a good inward chuckle because Kaysen is literally the most disgusting being to exist in all three worlds. But then we saw Willie as Zack was leaving. At the very... Oh, Maud's already freaking the ever-living shit out. She's getting it. Um, she's getting it. She's already understanding it. So we saw Willie holding that Kaysen doll. And that's fucking weird, right? And there's something particular about the Greenvale map, and I've been teasing my chat. I've been teasing my chat with that all game to tell them to see if they could recognize what exactly is so special about Greenvale. What is so special about Greenvale? Yeah, Maud was joking. She made a joking comment. Please excuse my very crude traceover. I used another person's outline as a base, but this is essentially the line. Yeah, and SWERY confirmed it. SWERY confirmed it. He wanted to have it in-game. And Maud made a comment, and Trillium and I were freaking the hell out. Maud said, I think Willie's a sleeper agent. Maud was joking. And Trillium and I were freaking the ever-living hell out. Because according to SWERY, he wanted to have it in the game that Willie is Kaysen's handler. Willie is a direct agent of the Red Tree. The Red Tree is what controls the Red World. SWERY himself has stated this. My chat has exploded. My chat has exploded completely. Maud is screaming at me. You said to trust the dog, and I was joking, saying no, he's a sleeper agent. I also told you not to trust me. I told you don't trust me. I told you some things were going to be saved until the very end. I don't anyway. Well, you clearly did there. Willie is evil. And he is still running around. Now think about all of Willie's actions. Isn't that weird? Isn't that pretty sinister in hindsight, actually? Pretty fucking weird and sinister? Oh my god, my mod's brain is fucking exploding. He knew just what to do, where to go, where to find the bones. Also, I did point this out. Yes, Willie is the actual big bad. That is confirmed by SWERY. That is the word of God. Willie is Kaysen's handler. Willie is a being of the Red World. Yeah, and remember, I said this was a fan theory, and it's because of Willie. The gun that Brian Xander Morgan kills himself with is a Magnum. After you find all 7 human bones, Willie grabs them from you, takes them back to his doghouse. You get the bones back, and you also get a Magnum gun. Not supported. But that is not confirmed that it's Brian's. Xander's. I don't know why I keep calling him by his first name when all the Morgan family go by their middle names. That would be like me calling York and Zach Francis. Which they hate. And I can officially say it now. My favorite Deadly Premonition character is Zach. He is sweet. And when I was asking people kind of what their impressions of Zach were, I was very pleasantly surprised to hear Maud pretty much describe Zach perfectly by saying that he is very quiet. He's very quiet, but he is like almost like patiently waiting to strike like a viper. Zach does have a viciousness to him, but he is a complete sweetheart. So Maud was seriously on the ball this whole game. Trisha was essentially me going through the game the first time, so it was a delight to see both sides. It really was, because Trisha guessed that Kaysen was the big bad, while Katie had everything else on lock. The best weapon to kill him you find in the doghouse, I say. Yep. Oh my god, she's freaking out. This is what I was so excited for. SWERY wanted to put it in game, but they didn't have the time or the budget, sadly. So, he was just hoping that people would notice that Greenvale looked dog-shaped and make a connection to Willie. And then he confirmed it in an interview with, I believe, Fanmitsu. You can find it. The website Welcome to Greenvale, if you scour that website, it undoubtedly has the link, or the link to the translation, or at least like a screenshot of it. And here's something really clever that's from the second game, but is very cool now that you know, because here's what happens. The second game spoils the fact that Zach is the quote-unquote real one right off the bat. So that's why I was like praying nobody would like look into any Deadly Prem 2 stuff. This is York showing off his badge. See Francis York Morgan, but the way he writes York also looks like Zach. SWERY again had this done intentionally. Look at that. Mod's seen it. Yep. Chat's got it. It's a very brief shot. It is a quick, it's a literal thing. It's just a very quick thing. But it is such an amazing, minute detail. It's crazy. Francis York Morgan and Francis Zach Morgan. I.e., these two wonderful men. Right here. So, there's a few other things to cover, but I wanted to cover the York and Zach theory first. Then I wanted to blow everybody's minds with Willie actually being the big bad. So there's some things... So, George being the villain is actually pretty obvious. The game makes it pretty obvious from the get-go. George is on every scene of the crime, like, is on every crime scene. Like, it's everything that I've said that I've read off from Mod and chat. She had it down pat. And I mentioned this before, but when York asks, "Who killed you, Becky?" she tries to point to George. If you watch her finger twitch, she's trying to point in George's direction. Don't worry, I didn't notice it either. If some of chat's beating themselves up. Don't worry, I didn't notice it either, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought, due to Otherworld properties, it was still Kaysen. I suspected Kaysen the most. I thought Kaysen was the most suspicious. And then when George was revealed as the villain, I completely forgot about Kaysen. So Kaysen being the big bad completely screwed my mind again. And I think this can only really be achieved once in this kind of game. Deadly Premonition was originally released on the Xbox 360 for $20. Retail price, brand spanking new, sealed copy, $20. It's far more expensive now. I'll tell you that. Look it up on price charting. I, of course, have all versions, including the Steam version that doesn't work. Or that actually only that the Russians can get to work, which is really hilarious. So, this came out, you know, like 10 years ago. It's been 10 years. And I have to, like, I need to see, like, mainstream games of 2010. Let's see what else was, like, really coming out. I don't know, I don't want the decade. Yeah, of the 2010s. Let's see. Here's a list of, like, the 10 best video games. No, I said that, and then you gave me GTA 5, which came out in 2013. Screw you. here we go. The 20 best games of 2010. So, for example, in 2010, we also had Fallout New Vegas. We had Kirby's Epic Yarn. We had Castlevania Harmony of Despair. Yeah, I'm going to go for more popular titles. People don't really know the Castlevania one came out. So we had Fallout New Vegas. We had Kirby's Epic Yarn. Super Meat Boy. Scrolling down here. No, I'm not even going to name it. We had Mass Effect 2 come out that same year. One of my personal favorites. WarioWare DIY on the DS. WarioWare games are always really popular. Limbo, the very popular indie game, which is a beautiful, excellent game. Bayonetta. Donkey Kong Country Returns. Minecraft Alpha came out on PC. Heavy Rain. Red Dead Redemption. Super Mario Galaxy 2. I mean, those were the games that were coming out in 2010. And among all of those, Deadly Premonition just kind of snuck its way in. Yeah, a lot of really good games that show the graphical quality that we've achieved, that we had achieved at the time. A lot of really good, solid gameplay. And this slips in for $20 retail with essentially a $20 budget that SWERY has been working on for 6 years. His second real independent game since Spy Fiction. He recycled a couple of models. He recycled Kaysen. He recycled Lysander, the General. He recycled a few others. Down to their names. And this came out of literal nowhere. And it looks very janky. My friends and I jokingly referred to it as the Dreamcast 360. It has kind of Dreamcasty graphics on an Xbox 360. I mean, the PS3 had some graphical upgrades, but you still saw some very obvious texture problems, and I mean, I've talked during the stream about it supposed to be looking like retro jank. Like, the jank is part of the charm. We get that. But it has kind of this perfect storm where the answer is so obvious, but at the same time, you go, it can't be that easy. It can't be that easy. I'm missing something. Deadly Premonition makes you overthink it. It keeps you second guessing over and over and over again. That's why I told you guys to overanalyze everything. Because, in a way, that's the best way to play the game. You don't just take it at face value. You really get into it. You put your brain box to it. Some of chat is saying that's why the odd feeling with George I just pushed aside. Yep. So you had an inkling that he was suspicious, but you ignored it. Because that was too easy. George couldn't be the killer. Has to be this guy Kaysen. Oh shit, George is the killer, so I guess Kaysen's innocent. Wait, what? Oh my god. It's like the perfect storm of just kind of like schlock and surprise and a lot of creativity. And it's very obvious that yeah. Trisha goes, and then wait, what? It's Willie the fucking dog. And then my mod, Katie, goes, as soon as George said I was like, fucking Kaysen. She was on that fast. As soon as George said, he gave me a locket, mama, she DM'd me going, fucking Kaysen. Fucking Kaysen. Yeah, Kaysen, you don't know what a truly disgusting creature he is until the very, very end. And he's really one of those villains that you can never get out of your head. He is more sickening than some of the AAA titles. Like, I would call him more disgusting than, like, Shelby from Heavy Rain, another title that came out that year. If you haven't played Heavy Rain, sorry, spoilers. But it's been 10 years. So, sorry, not sorry. I mean, like, I find him to be more disgusting than a lot of big bads. I think he is deplorable. I think his voice actor did a fantastic job I think Jeff Kramer, like, literally deserves an award for his performance as York. Especially when he started getting emotional and then turning to Zach. There is such a difference from York and Zach. And there's such a tenderness to York's voice when he talks about and to Zach. And it's phenomenal voice work. And like for a 2010 game, I mean, some of the voice work was very kind of robotic and weird, but like when they were expected to deliver, they 110% delivered. And believe me when I say that the cast for 2, including Jeff Kramer, who I've mentioned before, came out of retirement just to play York again, just to play York and Zach again. York and Zach are both in Deadly Prem 2. It is a sequel and a prequel. It was advertised as such. I'm not spoiling anything. You can hear the difference between York and Zach immediately. Again. And I was really nervous when I went to Deadly Prem 2, because it had been 7 years for Jeff Kramer. Technically 10 since the full game, but 7 since the director's cut, where he had to record some new lines for Old Man Zach and for Grandpa Zach and for York at the very end. And I was kind of nervous because, like, the original voice actor for Jafar has played Jafar in every iteration, but it always sounds like a different dude. And every animated Jafar you see is the same guy. It never sounds like the same guy to me. Just something about that first performance is so perfect, and it's hard for him to replicate it. But when Jeff Kramer came back, I was nervous, and then when I finally started playing the game, my heart completely melted as soon as I heard York talking again. It was like he was just slipping into a pair of sneakers that he's worn his whole life. It was immediately York. It brought tears to my eyes and a smile to my face. He is phenomenal, and he's really not known for much, and it is a damn shame. But anyway, back to George as the villain. So I was talking about Deadly Prem kind of as this perfect storm. So George is the villain. There's a couple of things I did not point out on purpose. I didn't go looking for them. You can find them in-game. This is why I encourage anyone who's watching this, it's on the Nintendo Switch. If you have a Nintendo Switch, you likely bought it for Animal Crossing. If you bought it in 2020, the year where everything burned, then get it. Deadly Premonition Origins. And Deadly Prem 2 is, as of right now, in 2020, a Nintendo Switch exclusive. So there is no reason not to have it, in my opinion, because there are so many things I did not do. There's so many side quests I didn't do. There are so many extra conversations I didn't partake in. There's a guide on the site, Welcome to Greenvale, that does 100%. You can get every single conversation. You can get every single side quest. It's a much more in-depth game that even I went into. And fucking damn it, Mod. It was Diane. It was Diane, you pointed it out. And I was internally screaming. So here's one thing about George. The more victims that die, and Mod noticed it with Diane, and I just had to play it off. That it was just like, oh no, it's just the lighting. With every victim, the scar on George's face that he got when his mom punctured his cheek with her heel, or his cheek with her heel, that scar on his face gets more and more pronounced with every victim. It gets deeper and deeper as he gains more and more power. George is obsessed with power. He agreed to fishing the documents out of the river because it meant going to a waterfall. And according to George, in Feng Shui, waterfalls are a symbol of power. George is obsessed with power. Musically, a couple of things happen. The very first time you meet Emily, it has a nice, soft, like, airy tone. This very, like, pleasant to listen to, almost angelic chorus going on, establishing that Emily is, like, a really good character. She's pure. And then George comes in, and this dirty, nasty sting immediately accompanies him. This ominous music accompanies George. His name is George Woodman. Woodman. A tree of power. Woodman. The only other 2 red trees you could find in Greenvale that were not sanctioned behind the graveyard, that were not kept in that area in the graveyard, the only other 2 red trees you could find were one outside of George's house and one outside of the police station. The 2 places George frequented the most. George says the first time you meet him, you don't have to be a tree hugger to appreciate the landscape here. And now here's a couple of interesting things. You guys remember how I would use the map to find people? That was a very unique feature of the Deadly Prem map. You could see who was where at what time. You remember me looking for, like, Lily to see if she was at the milk barn, that kind of stuff. At a certain point in the game, and I don't remember exactly what point it is, because I didn't go looking for it on purpose, because I didn't want to throw any... I did not want to do this to you guys. I wanted this to be like a secret until the end kind of thing. But you can go through and play it and find it on your own. At a certain point, at a certain time, George will come into the Galaxy of Terror, Carol's bar, and he and Thomas will go into the back room. And you can look on the map, and you can see that they're both in the same place. They're in that BDSM dungeon that George convinced them to build beneath the bar. This is long before Thomas's reveal. This is long before the reveal that Thomas is a cross-dresser. This is long before... Yeah. And remember York asked Carol about the back room, and she said that he needed a warrant? The other thing about George... is that I believe it's when I believe it's not after I don't think it's in the diner. I think it's in the bar. I think again it's in the Galaxy of Terror after you have the drinks with him and after he kind of pours his heart out to you, and then after you drink with Emily and right before you head back to the hotel. If you pull up your map and it's late at night and you go looking in the woods, George is wandering the woods. He's not at home. It literally shows George's little cursor in the woods. But he claimed he was so tired he was going to go home and get some rest. It's bone-chilling, honestly. When I found that out, I went and looked it up. Yep. Yeah, Maud said, well, yeah, he doesn't have to take care of his mom either. He already took care of her. Actually, I don't think he did. I think, because Harry was talking about how he couldn't kill his wife. And so how he lost her the same way that, Valentine died. Yeah, I think Kaysen did it to George's mom to earn George's trust. No, she was not the tree. She was in the basement. We saw her in the basement. Oh, she had the tree. Yeah, she was growing a tree out of her. Yeah. I thought you were talking about she was the tree in the yard. It's like, no, she was not the tree in the yard. She was still in that basement. But Harry did yeah, sorry. 4:30 a.m. brain. That's how long I've been up. But yeah, I don't think George killed her, actually. He just kept her in the basement. In, like, this little prize room, like, full-on psycho. And I mean the movie, not, calling him a psycho. So, yeah, Katie is right. Mom was already dead. Mrs. Woodman was already dead. Katie, you were so on point this entire fucking game. I was astounded. I was just like, Jesus Christ. Nothing is going to surprise her. So I'm like, I'm just like, my mind is like, there's a lot more with George and his obvious hindsights. Obviously how he acts. As Katie pointed out, he directly, I mean, everybody does know about Becky. He directly did kill Becky. He finished the job. But she pointed out with Diane, he pushed the statue to the point where the wires were strained and snapped and wrapped around her, killing her. So George did, in a way, still kill Diane. The only goddess he didn't kill was Thomas and Emily, because he wanted Emily as his queen. There is more about George and his obvious hindsights, but those are like the most obvious ones. The scar, the locations, his name as Woodman, sort of the musical sting that accompanies him when you first see him. There's a lot. Like, he... Pretty much every time you ran into the Red Raincoat Killer, George was hanging around. Even on the wooded path where you first met the Red Raincoat Killer at the beginning of the game, before you even got to Greenvale, you're talking to Emily. She said, George went out to go look for you. George was at every single location. He was quote-unquote on his way to Becky's house. He was already at Becky's house. The calls were coming from inside the house, quite literally. He was hiding out until Quint left. So, I mean, there's a lot more. You can find it on TV Tropes. That's a good place where a lot of people point out even more of how, like, kind of obvious it is in hindsight that George is the killer. But really the best way is to kind of either watch a playthrough, or there is somebody who did the cutscenes as a movie. Watch the cutscenes, play it yourself, and just kind of realize, like, everything George does. Knowing that he is the killer from the get-go, everything takes on a different meaning. Knowing Kaysen is the big bad and an agent of the Red World takes on a different meaning. The whole game takes on a different meaning now that you have gone through it once. It's a game that continues to build meaning the more you play it, which is incredibly special, and it takes a special kind of talent for that. And I honestly do think SWERY... It's very obvious that SWERY poured a lot of time and love into the game, and to me, it's frankly astounding. This was, in 2010, this was a life-changing game for me. It was a perfect storm of how to make your audience guess, like, overthink to the point of where they overlook the obvious. It had fantastic writing. It had a lot of really genuine pathos. Like, York and Zach are some of, like, the purest characters I've ever seen. Just how much they really care about each other is something that's really, really pure and very special, and not very well conveyed in a lot of other types of media. And you can tell that this game meant a lot to SWERY, who created it. And so, just as a consumer, I would love to say thank you, SWERY. Even 10 years later, I love playing this game. And this was the game that I wanted to share from the get-go. This is the game that made me want to stream. I wanted to share this game with anybody who would watch it. Anybody who would listen. I wanted to scream about this game from the mountaintops. I think it's a beautiful game. It is actually brought up in the arguments of video games as a work of art. Deadly Premonition is brought up alongside Shadow of the Colossus. And along with BioShock. Games of that caliber. It's Deadly Premonition is brought up. And I think it rightfully should be. It's a very thought-provoking game. Oh, wow. Some members of chat are saying it's by far their favorite that I've streamed. It's a very special game to me. It's not everybody's cup of tea or coffee in this case, because York and Zach don't like tea. Coffee is the most important thing. With milk. But, I mean, for those who really like this kind of stuff, it is something incredibly special. It is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And I'm very happy that SWERY made this. So, again, thank you, SWERY. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. This is just something that's so special to me. So, I don't have anything else to cover, but I'm wondering if chat has any questions. Any remaining questions. Because there's a lot. There's a lot that's left unanswered. I will say, canonically, the director's cut, the extra scenes with Luis, are not quite canon, because things that happen in 2 could potentially retcon it. I could see it still happening. I can kind of see where it's retconned, but not really. Honestly, I truly think you answered all the ones I had off the top of my head, and so much more. You mean like Willie being... Dude, I've had 10 years with this game. I've had 10 years with this game. Just playing it back and forth and reading theories and fanfics, and you're never going to look at that dog the same way again. I love it. I was so excited to get to that part, but I wanted to explain York and Zach first. Sorry. I'm really thirsty. I don't care if you guys heard me drinking that time. So, that is my epilogue to one of my favorite games, Deadly Premonition. Again, I highly encourage, if you liked this, if you liked anything that you saw, please go and pick up a copy for the Switch. That is the most accessible of what's out. The 360 version is actually fairly pricey now. If you can find the PS3 Director's Cut, good on you, lasagna. If you can get the Steam version working, even more power to you. But this is a beautiful game. It's a piece of art, I think. It filled my spoopy quota for October. I did promise Mod that I would do a blind playthrough of Sleeping Dogs, so I need a little bit to cool out, like any long playthrough. It's not as long as Final Fantasy X was. I didn't expect it to be, but it's still been a long playthrough, so I need to cool out a little bit. But thank you guys so much for joining me on this journey. It's been amazing sharing one of my absolute favorite games of all time with you. And so for you guys on YouTube, that's been Deadly Premonition, and I hope you enjoyed the audio quality improving over the course of the game. And again, thank you to the Game Grumps for pushing me to making me like want to stream this and kind of share it, because some people kind of took the playthrough the wrong way, in a sort of backwards way. I know Aaron and Dan did not mean any harm whatsoever, so because they're just really swell dudes. I've met them both. They're really swell people, and So this one's for you guys, and thank you so much, SWERY. I will see you guys on YouTube later, and you take it easy.